3 years ago today that COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization. I'm Melissa Nakhavoly at Nathan Phillips Square, where the city is marking the anniversary with an interactive art experience to acknowledge how far we've come. Now, experts say that while we have come a long way from 3 years ago, there have also been many lessons learned along the way. It was a moment in time that changed the world.
We really didn't know much about COVID when it first started, and now we know so much more.
I think the COVID-19 pandemic exposed a lot of society's failings, and particularly health inequities.
Toronto saw overcrowded hospitals, tragedies in long-term care homes, and a virus that disproportionately impacted vulnerable populations.
I'm thinking of racialized people across Toronto, but across Canada, we saw huge racial disparities and the presence of systemic racism and what that can look like throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm thinking about the plight of unhoused people who suffered immensely throughout the pandemic and had higher rates of hospitalization and even death.
Over the last 3 years, hospitalizations, ICU admissions, and deaths have stabilized. And though we've come a long way, Dr. Anna Banerjee says because of the lack of testing and policy, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly how much COVID is still going around.
If you don't have public health policies in place, it's really hard to know what's going on, and really in some ways hard to know how to respond to it. So I'm hoping that it is becoming endemic, that most of us have been exposed.
The National Advisory Committee on Immunization is recommending an additional bivalent booster dose for adults at increased risk of severe illness if it's been 6 months or more since their last shot. Experts say annual boosters could be required in the future. And as for if we will ever see the end of COVID, doctors say likely not for many years.
I think it's going to simmer along, but it's like a sine wave that it gets smaller and smaller. But we predicted that for now 3 years, that it was going to gradually fade, and it really hasn't as much. But I'm hoping now this time it's going to decline.
COVID-19 is not over. And I know a lot of people want to move on. And I know that a lot of people are very tired. People suffered a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic, but there are many people who are still suffering in our communities, people who are immunocompromised, people living with disabilities who are still being hit by this.
And here at Nathan Phillips Square, an event is taking place later tonight at 7 o'clock. The event is an interactive art experience called The Burn. And here's a look at what the art installation is all about. People will be able to come out here and gather, share their emotions with one another, let go of negative emotions that they might have gained over the pandemic, as well as remember those lives that were lost during that time. There'll be several speakers out here as well on stage starting at 7 o'clock. The event itself will be going on for the next 24 hours. So if you do wish to come down here, there's still plenty of opportunity to do so and to commemorate this third anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic.